would you do if your boss raised his hand to strike you in front of everyone? Would you duck? Would you run? Or would you do what this 8 months pregnant waitress did? Something so brave it didn't just save her job, completely transformed a monster. This is the story of the woman who proved that sometimes the smallest voice can create the biggest change. Right, buckle up, because this one's going to have you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. Picture the hottest, most chaotic kitchen you've ever been in. Steam billowing everywhere, pots clattering, oil spattering, and the kind of heat that makes your clothes stick to your skin. Now imagine walking into that madness when you're 8 months pregnant, your feet are killing you, and you've got exactly 7 days to make rent, or you're out on the street. That's exactly where Evelyn found herself on what should have been just another Tuesday evening. She stood there in her stretched, tight uniform. Her bump so big she could barely reach the prep counter, sweat already beading on her forehead. The other kitchen staff were giving her these nervous looks like she was about to detonate. "You sure about this, love?" the head chef whispered. "You know who's coming tonight, right?" Oh, she knew all right. Everyone in the restaurant industry knew about Thomas Bellamy, the billionaire hotel owner who treated his staff like absolute rubbish. Grown men had been reduced to tears. Experienced chefs had walked out mid-shift. He was the kind of boss who threw plates first and asked questions later. But here's the thing about Evelyn. She didn't have the luxury of being scared. Her baby's father had done a runner the moment she refused to get rid of the pregnancy. She had no family to fall back on, no savings to speak of, and a nursery that consisted of nothing but hope and determination. So when Thomas Bellamy stormed into that kitchen at exactly 22 minutes to 7, looking like a shark in a 1,000-pound suit, Evelyn just kept working. The man's presence filled the room like a toxic cloud. Within seconds, he'd already started his usual routine. A waiter dropped a fork and Bellamy practically roared, "What is this amateur hour? Did we hire school children?" Some of the staff actually laughed nervously, desperate to stay on his good side. Not Evelyn. She kept slicing, kept plating, kept doing her job like her life depended on it. Because, frankly, it did. Then his eyes landed on her. "You," he said, pointing at her belly like it was something offensive. "Who hired the walking balloon to ruin my kitchen's reputation?" The entire room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Evelyn didn't even look up from her workstation. "I'm here to do my job, sir. My condition doesn't affect my ability to work." That was her first mistake. Well, actually, it was her first act of courage, but Bellamy saw it as defiance. He stalked over to her like a predator circling prey. "What's your name, Evelyn?" He grabbed the plate she'd just finished, a beautiful piece of work, garnished to perfection, and smashed it on the floor. The crash echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. "Wrong answer. Your name's unemployed. Get out." And this is where the story gets absolutely mental. Evelyn looked him straight in the eye and said, "No, I'm not joking." This 8 months pregnant woman, whose feet were swollen, whose back was aching, needed this job more than her next breath, looked at one of the most powerful men in the hospitality industry and said no. Bellamy's face went purple. "What did you just say to me?" I said, "No, I need this job. And honestly, you don't have the right to treat people this way, pregnant or otherwise." The kitchen had gone from silent to absolutely tomb-like. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. It was like watching a nature documentary where the gazelle suddenly turns around and squares up to the lion. Bellamy started laughing, but it wasn't a nice sound. "Oh, you think you're special because you're carrying some kid? Think your bump gives you special privileges?" What happened next still gives me chills. He raised his hand. Not to gesture, not to point, but to strike her. This powerful, wealthy man was about to hit a pregnant woman in front of a room full of witnesses. But Evelyn didn't flinch the way he expected. She placed one protective hand on her belly and held the other up calmly. "Touch me," she said quietly, "and I'll make sure the world sees exactly what kind of man you really are." That's when everything changed.
As while this standoff was happening, something brilliant was going on around them.
The kitchen staff, these people who'd been terrorized by this man for years, started pulling out their phones. Not in a planned way, mind you. It just happened organically. One person started recording, then another, then another. Within seconds, half the kitchen had their cameras rolling. Bellamy's eyes darted around the room as he realized what was happening. "Stop filming. Stop filming right now." But nobody did. For the first time, they had the power. "I can destroy all of your careers. he screamed, but his voice cracked. The authority was bleeding out of him like air from a punctured tire. And Evelyn, she just turned back to her station and started plating the next dish. The silence that followed was deafening. Bellamy stood there, shoulders heaving, fists clenched, looking like a toddler who'd just been told no for the first time in his life. "You think you've won?" he whispered. Evelyn didn't even look at him. "I didn't come here to win anything. I came here to survive." And that broke something in him. Not in a dramatic, movie-like way, but quietly. Like a dam with a small crack that suddenly gives way. He stormed out without another word. Here's where you'd expect the story to end, right? The pregnant hero stands up to the bully. The bully leaves. Everyone cheers, roll credits. But real life isn't a Hollywood film. Evelyn finished her shift in silence. Nobody celebrated. Nobody clapped. Everyone was too shocked, too scared of what would happen next. She gathered her things, convinced she'd never see another day's wages from this place, and prepared to go home to face the reality of her situation. But then something completely unexpected happened. An hour later, the restaurant manager found her in the staff room. "Evelyn," he said nervously, "Mr. Bellamy hasn't left the building. He's sitting in the dining room. He's asked to speak with you." Every instinct screamed at her to run. This was clearly a trap. He was going to finish what he'd started, probably somewhere without witnesses this time. But that same strength that had made her stand up to him earlier told her to finish this on her terms. She walked into the dimly lit dining room to find Bellamy sitting alone at a corner table. His expensive suit rumpled, a glass of wine sitting untouched in front of him. "I wasn't going to hit you," were his first words. "Yes, you were," she replied simply, sighed, and for the first time, he looked ... human. Broken maybe, but human. "My wife used to stand up to me like that," he said quietly. "She was the only person who never let me get away with being cruel. When she died 5 years ago, I just ... I became this." She'd heard sob stories from powerful men before, and you should have stepped away from people before you became a monster. The words hit him like a physical blow. He didn't argue, didn't defend himself. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "But what you did today ... It's the first time in years someone's made me actually look at myself." He pulled out an envelope. Not money, a letter he'd written to his board of directors, stepping away from restaurant management for 6 months to get the help he clearly needed. And then he offered her something that changed her life forever. "I want you to take over as acting manager of this restaurant." Evelyn stared at him. "You don't even know me. I know strength when I see it. You didn't just stand up to me. You've kept that entire kitchen from falling apart under my tantrum. You were the only one who didn't cower or try to flatter me." The offer came with everything she'd been desperately needing: proper salary, health insurance, maternity leave. But more than that, it came with respect. "What about the baby?" she asked. For the first time, he smiled genuinely. "Your kitchen, your rules. Even if that means a cot in the manager's office." That night, Evelyn walked home through the London streets with her uniform folded neatly in her bag and her mind racing. She wasn't sure if Bellamy would keep his word. Powerful men had made promises to her before. But for the first time in months, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel like just another pregnant woman that society had written off. She felt powerful. And you know what the most incredible part of this story is? It's not just about one woman's courage or one man's redemption. It's about how quickly power dynamics can shift when people refuse to accept unacceptable behavior. Those kitchen staff who started filming, they'd been putting up with abuse for years because they thought they had no choice. But the moment one person said enough, it gave everyone else permission to stand up too. Evelyn didn't set out to be a hero that day. She was just a woman trying to survive, trying to provide for her unborn child. But sometimes, that's exactly what heroism looks like. Not grand gestures, but small acts of dignity when everything's on the line. Think about your own workplace, your own life. How many times have you witnessed behavior that made you uncomfortable, but said nothing because the person had power over you? How many times have you wished someone would just say no to the office bully or the toxic boss? This story proves that sometimes the most unlikely person in the room has the power to change everything. Not because they're stronger or braver than everyone else, but because they literally have nothing left to lose. If this story's moved you, then smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit subscribe for more stories that'll restore your faith in standing up for what's right, even when it's terrifying. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had a moment where you had to choose between your dignity and your paycheck? What did you choose? Your stories inspire me more than you know. Remember, you never know who's watching when you decide to be brave. You might just give someone else permission to find their own courage. Till next time, keep standing up for what's right, keep believing in your own worth, and never underestimate the power of a simple no when it matters most. Cheers.